Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, many communities have parks for their residents to enjoy, and a lot of them have interesting histories and background. Today we're focusing on Diamond, a park we're going to find out more about its history, but as well as its future. Joining me, we have Debbie Cash and Cindy Powers. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Let's start off by saying the park we're talking about has some direct ties to your family, Dieckhoff Park. So let's start with a little bit of history. We're talking about Diamond. A lot of our viewers may not be familiar, so let's give a little bit of background for us.
So Diamond's a very small community. There's only 700-800 people, and for many, many years there was no place that a family could go and enjoy just family time. And my sister and I, we lived in a house that had about 10 acres with it. That's where we grew up. And when my parents decided to move, my sister bought the house, and they wanted to do something with the land, and it had always been my dad's dream to have a city park, and he wanted to donate the land that we had to build a park. So in the dedication of the book, you can kind of read all about that, but it basically, they decided to donate the land. The mayor knew of my dad's dreams, and so he kind of got involved with it, and they donated the land. The land sat there for many, many years. The first thing they built on it was some senior housing for low-income seniors, and they built that on the back part of the land first, and then the frontage just kind of sat empty for over 20 years. And then finally they decided, or they got some money to actually fund and get some playground equipment, and so they got playground equipment. And then that same year my son was getting his Eagle Scout, and he decided that he wanted to do his Eagle Scout project in the park. So he wanted to do a pavilion where we could have picnic tables and families could get together and do that. So that year we got playground equipment and we got the pavilion, and it all started, and it just took off from there.
So your father was very involved with the city at the time, and involved with the people that in the community, knowing that was a need of the community.
Yes, he's always been involved in the community, as well as my mom. They were teachers in the school district, so they knew lots of people, and lots of people knew them, and they were around town all the time. So our father has been involved with the Diamond Lions Club, I think, from the very inception, and he's still involved at this time. So it was just something he wanted for kids in the town.
What was the family reaction when your parents said, "We'd like to give this land to the city"? It's something that...
Well, I don't even remember it, honestly, because I was still in high school, and I knew, my sister bought the house and was living there, but I really didn't even know that they had donated the land right away. Now, she may remember.
Yeah, I do. Of course, there's always questions about what about the noise, and because we had little ones at the time.
You were going to be living next to this land, right?
Is it going to be safe? Some questions like that, but they've taken some precautions, and it's worked out very well. We've got lighting out there now, and there is a stage out there now. So, but we've enjoyed sitting in the backyard and being able to watch those performances and be part of that, and I enjoy watching the families being able to spend time with their children.
It sounds like it's been interesting watching the park develop, as you mentioned.
Yes.
It started off with some housing, but then it actually got into those family-friendly features of a park.
Yeah, and our father actually was on the board of that senior housing from the very beginning. Yeah.
So he knew that was a need of the community as well.
Yes, he did. He did.
And bringing that in. So a park board, you're a member of the park board, so tell me about how the park board functions and tying this together.
Well, we're always looking for people to help with the park board. They'll come and they'll go, and we just try to make good decisions on how we want the park to go forward. We take ideas from people, what they would like to have in the park. We've had a few presented to us recently, and we'd like to put those in place, but there's always some problems with getting the funding for some of those ideas.
Versus the ideas, right?
Yeah.
So you started out, as you said, with playground equipment. Bring the kids in.
Right.
So we had an anonymous donor who gave money to the park board to buy playground equipment. So that's what started it off. And there was enough money left over then to build the pavilion. So for several years, that's all there was. But at least that was enough, because families could come and their children could play, and they could also sit at the playground and have have food. And then just over the years, it's just grown. And you know, I think last year or the year before is when the stage was added.
Yeah, just this last year. They wanted to get it prepared for our annual Gem City celebration that we have in our town.
So. I know we have some pictures, so instead of us just talking, let's let the viewers take a look at some of the things that help us visualize the park and what we're talking about. And of course, you mentioned the cookbook, which we're going to be talking about shortly, but this is part of the dedication. And is that a family picture that we're seeing?
That is a family picture.
That's a family picture that was taken several years ago. Our family has grown quite a bit more since then, with lots more little ones. But yes, there's 5 of us children, and then our mom and dad are still with us, and then lots of grandkids and even great-grandkids. And that's the dedication that I wrote that actually tells about how the park came to be, and that it was a dream, and all the different things that, you know, went into it to have that. Right. And this is a dedication. We had a niece that passed away a year ago, and we wanted to dedicate something there in the park for her. So we have another picture later, but we planted a couple of blueberry bushes, and this is just a memorial for her there.
Okay. So that kind of sets the path for the future of other people helping remember with somebody and so forth. Right. Your parents?
This is our parents, and this is the new sign that they've put in the last year or two. And you can kind of see the housing development behind it there. That's where the senior housing is.
Oh, okay. So great. So, and then when you talk about Gem City Days, this is part of that?
This is part of the Gem City Days. Yes, these are some of the booths that were happening. We had 35 to 40 vendors this year, so we had a lot of things out there. And it started out downtown on the streets. Now we get to bring it all the way down to the park, and there's a church and there's another place that lets them park, and then we get them down get them down to the park, or they walk down to the park. And
a lot more room at the park.
Yeah, and there's lighting, as you can see. There's some lighting down there now, and
and we can see. And then you mentioned a stage.
Right.
Tell me about the stage and the entertainment aspect of this.
Well, we usually have 3 to 4 bands that come in during the day, and we also had our first annual summer kickoff this year at the Gem City Park, or the Dieckhoff Park, and we had a barbecue, and we can have movies in the park now. So we're hoping to do more of that next summer as well.
So this is just one example of how the park can be used.
Right. And the one thing is each year when they used to have Gem City Days, which is our annual celebration of the town, they used to have to rent a truck or trailer or something to have the music festivities on. And they used to pay for that every year to have that stage. And so now with the stage being built, they no longer have that expense, so they can get a little more high dollar bands or entertainment to come in. So that's kind of nice.
And I noticed a sign that was up there, 27th.
Yeah.
Many years of history for that.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And a lot of local supporters, it looks like, as well.
Yes, there are.
And tying that together. So a lot of bringing the community together, smaller towns having festivals like this.
That's
you find
right.
a lot of people coming back, or they may have moved away, they come back that weekend.
Yes, they do. We have a reunion at the high school during that day, and so a lot of people do come back and go up and see old friends.
Right.
So
bringing everyone back together and reminiscing. And what we have.
Right. Anyone who went to school there, pretty much, if they're going to come back to the town, that's when they try and come back, so that they can watch the parade and then go to the school and see their friends and so forth.
So now they come to the park to enjoy the festivities, right?
They do.
I
think we have some other pictures as well. So this is more of the activities of the day.
And so behind you'll kind of see it's like a little homemade train ride for the little kids. So they do that and let the kids ride around. This year they even had, I believe it's in some of the upcoming pictures, they even had like a petting zoo and had animals there for the children. And of course they have the playground to play on while their parents are walking around and looking at all.
So you're really emphasizing family.
Yes,
it's a
we are.
family activity.
We are.
So let's look at another picture as we go along and see. Of course, it looks like they're having some fun here as well. With the
And
kids.
it is, we do have a ramp for anyone that's disabled, so they can. Yeah, that's on the stage as well.
Okay.
So.
And that actually leads from the playground equipment area to the park where the pavilion is. There's a little ditch there with a little kind of a creek, and so this ramp goes across that from the playground to the other part of the park, so that they can get back and forth.
Across through the park and so forth. So, and then we have some more activities here, and that's the pavilion in the background behind this?
Right.
Yes.
So the pavilion there with all the picnic tables. there for people to sit and eat, and then they always have food that they sell. This year we had several vendors with food, and so they can eat lunch there and enjoy everything.
That's actually the Gem City Committee right there.
So the members of the community who are doing the work and putting this together.
Yeah, and they have a booth for food, yeah.
I imagine that is an undertaking. Even though you have 27 years of history, it's something that you probably start working as soon as the one finishes.
Yes,
right.
They do.
So there's the petting zoo, a couple of the animals there that they could go over and see.
So you have to coordinate the people who are going to be participating as vendors, but who's going to bring the animals in? How are you going to tie all this
We
together?
have a great person who does that whole Gem City Committee. She does a lot of work, you know, getting all those things together and advertising and getting people involved. So this was a new thing. The petting zoo was new, and it was a big hit.
Right. So you have a lot of volunteers who are involved with these projects.
A lot, yeah.
Tying that together. So the growth throughout the park, and then you mentioned also the pavilion and your son. Explain a little bit more about that. You know, it looks like a very nice facility. How did that tie into an Eagle Scout project?
So when you become an Eagle Scout, you have to lead and direct a project, and it usually involves a community. You have to do something for an organization or for a community, and it's all, of course, free labor. You know, the Scouts participate. So he decided he wanted to do the pavilion. So there's my son Cameron, and he was a very young Eagle Scout. He was only 13 at the time. Generally, they're between the ages of 16 and 18 usually when they do their project. But from the planning, he did all the planning, all the, you know, looking up to see what materials to get, all of that, and then of course he had to direct the boys, and you do have adult supervision there, obviously, of course, but we had to dig the holes, had to do the, you know, cement.
So it was construction 101 starting with.
Yes. It took us a month. We did 4 Saturdays, each Saturday of the month, and you can see this was kind of
the very
before
beginning.
we have another picture, I think, later that even has it before anything was erected, but there's when we just had it. We didn't have the cement on. If you want to go to the next picture, I think we've got shows a little bit.
So the next picture, if that follows up with some pictures. So you basically started with the bare land and said, we're going to put a pavilion here, and he helped plan it and the size.
So here's where we were actually planning it out, had to decide, you know, how far, put all the stakes down and decide. And there's the playground equipment in the background. It had gotten put into the park in July of that year, and this was October when we were putting that in. And one of the projects I think the board wants to do is, this has been 10 years ago almost, and so a lot of the things down where the playground is, the rubber matting or whatever that keeps the kids
PVC
safe.
pipe you're seeing too.
Yeah, that all needs to be redone, and of course
it's deteriorated in 10 years.
A lot of people using it in the weather and the effects of tying that together.
So we did that with the Scouts coming and helping us, and we had that put in place, and then we left it open above because the city wanted to put in lights to be able to have it lit at night, and electric pole to be able to do the food and things, because they already had planned that they would like to do, you know, the Gem City days there. So that allows us to do all of that with everything that we added to that.
It's really coordination between this project and the city and trying to get these projects together.
Right, and there are a lot of things that happen, you know, throughout the year. Like Gem City Days, of course, but we have the kickoff, and we just see many, many families coming in. They use it every week, you know, until it gets super, super cold, and then you'll see a few come out and do it anyway. But we even had a class reunion there.
Use the pavilion, gather.
Use the pavilion. They brought food. You know, they gathered there and had their class reunion there. So
can they reserve those facilities?
They can. Yes, they can through the city.
So if they know that, you know, April 25th we're going to have a gathering, family, we'll see if the pavilion's open, they can get
We've had some birthday parties there this year, and that was kind of fun to watch, because it was several large families gathered, and I think we had 2 going on at the same time at the 2 different pavilions. So it's exciting to see that there is some place that the families can come and have some time together and just
well, we hear a lot about parks and how they add to the quality of life for a community, because, you know, everybody might have their yard, you know, but if you want to have a large gathering, this gives you the opportunity, or just gives the places for the kids to go play other than the swing set in their background.
Right. And there's no charge to reserve it, but if you do reserve it, then they put a sign up, and that way you're assured that you're going to be able to use it on that day.
We actually had a birthday party for our father there this year.
Our dad had his birthday in August, so we had our whole family there, and it was a lot of fun. We did some outdoor games and different things, so it was just nice to be able to have our own family party there.
Family in the park that's named after your family.
We thought it was a good idea.
So that brings me to the fact that you have some cookbooks in front of you, and you mentioned that you had a dedication. So I want to transition now to the cookbook project, how that is tying into what we've been talking about.
So my mother had talked to me this summer about the fact that earlier in the spring, I guess, that she wanted to be able to leave the recipes that we all know and love that she makes and has made for years. And my brother kind of wanted to make sure we got those, you know, before they passed. And so I was thinking one day, and I called my sister up on the way home, and I said, well, why don't we do a cookbook? You know, I've done that before, and I said, if we do a cookbook, then we could make it a fundraiser, and then we could help fund some of these projects in the park. Obviously, we want to do more things, and there's lots of maintenance, and so the best way to do that is to get some funds, and what better way than to use recipes from our family. So we got together, and we had aunts and uncles and all of our immediate family and grandkids and kids, and everybody put in cookbooks, and we put it together, and we decided, well, all the money that we can raise from these cookbooks could then go for the park and do things to get the park. So we're trying to get those out, and they have lots of good recipes, even German recipes, because our family is German
background.
And everybody who's already bought one has just loved it and bought several, you know, or they've come back and said, yeah, I want to have one for a gift or whatever. And the cookbooks are just $12, and again, once we've paid for all the cookbooks, all that money is just going to the park. We're not using it for anything for us. It's just to try and help maintain and do things with the park.
Well, you mentioned your mother's background as a teacher and working on measures. There's a lot of former students who come back and you know, see her, and I remember.
We've had a lot of those call too. The thing that people have liked about it is because they're easy recipes, things that you have in your home pretty readily. It's not fancy, schmancy.
You don't have to go to a specialty store to buy the ingredients.
A few of them might be, the German ones might be things you don't have, but the others are things that are pretty simple.
Right.
Well, and when we first started advertising it, because before we got the cookbook done, we kind of posted on Facebook and said, hey, we're going to do this if you want to pre-order. And there were so many students who saw it, and even in California and Canada, you know, just other places, and they'd say, oh, I remember your mom's apple cake, or I remember this recipe your mom would bring to this event or whatever. So that was kind of nice for my mom to see that and know that people enjoyed her cooking. And our grandmother was actually a cook in the Freistadt school up by Monette, and so there's a lot of her recipes in there as well.
So generations are sharing and tying that. Now, I know, Debbie, was the audience, you mentioned cookbooks before. Years ago, we had a program here at Missouri Southern, and you helped headline or lead a cookbook effort at Missouri Southern. So.
Right. In 2005, we did the faculty and staff Southern cookbook and did the show Southern Cooks, and that was a lot of fun. And so we used the same company again, and it made it really easy to be able to do another cookbook. Yeah.
Well, in today's world, people, you said, looking for recipes that are fairly easy.
They are.
And so by having a book that they can look at it, you know, and say, only a few ingredients, I can do that.
Right. And a lot of kid-friendly, if they have their own family. These were all tested and tried.
Your family has
many,
had them for
many
years.
times.
So the extended family we saw in the photographs, a lot of those members brought the recipes for you.
Yes, and requested some be in there. So.
Was it hard to decide which ones to put in? I mean, I imagine you had a lot of choices.
Well, not really. I mean, we have so many. We would have, you know, we have our, obviously at Christmas and so forth, we all get together, and there's always those favorites. And so we always had those that somebody said, make sure that one gets in there, and make sure that one gets in there. And, you know, just did that. But then came up with new ones too, you know, that people, maybe we make them for our immediate family, but we haven't made them for a big gathering. And so you know, there's lots of ones that I haven't ever had. And then it was nice to have our aunts and uncles dig up recipes from our grandmother and ones that they remember that we maybe necessarily haven't had or didn't have maybe when we were little. So that to me was the neatest thing, was to be able to put those recipes in from my grandmother and remember those times with her.
Sharing the family as well as with the community and so forth. And Cindy, tell me about some ideas of how these funds can help the park and the community.
Well, like she said, we constantly have to refurbish the ground under all of the equipment, so you've got to put some covering on that. So that's one of the projects, plus like we said, the safety things that are around it are, you know, beginning to crack and things like that, so we've got to take care of those issues. Some people would like to have a walking area or a walking trail.
Going through the park?
So we're going to try to work on that. They'd like to have an area for animals too. I mean,
people have dog parks,
right? So we're going to try to work that in. We have gone to the conservation. There was and they came and we picked out trees. So we've planted. You saw a lot of those, but we planted a lot of trees last year. We had to take down some that were not safe and good, so we replaced them and put new trees in. So those are some of the things that we're planning, but it's just to help maintain, basically. You've got to take care of all those things, and we have to make sure we keep the kids safe. And
you build it, you have to make sure it stays safe.
Correct.
And
We'd like to put a box up for those reservations. If they do want to reserve the pavilions, we'd like to put a box up so that it won't get torn down or
the weather won't affect
vandalized,
things, signs are hanging up and things like that. So we're recording this program in November. What's your timetable for the sales? What are you looking at trying to do that?
Well, we have ordered enough that we're going to have them for years to come, but we'd like to finish getting at least, you know, another 150, 200 sold in the next couple of months, just to kind of get the books all paid for, and then we can start actually seeing funds, you know, to go towards the park. So we're looking, you know, in the future, we're going to have them for a while. If families decide they bought one and then they decide they want one for someone else or a family member or something, we're definitely going to have them for the future. But we want to try and kick off and get some of those done so that we start seeing some profit there for the park.
They make great Christmas presents.
That's what I was going to ask. So tying into the holiday season coming up, so you're promoting it a lot between now and Christmas.
Yes, we will be.
That brings up the question, how do people get them? I think we have a graphic that will show on the screen some information where they're available. So
we have several places. We have Toner Connection here in Joplin, which is actually Cindy's husband's business there, and she has those there in the office. My brother's business, Main Street Feeds, he has them both in Monette and in Springfield, 2 locations there. And then Orchard Pharmacy in Springfield also has them. That's a relative on my brother's side there. Then they can contact myself, Debbie Cash, either email or phone number, or Cindy phone number. And I actually work here in Joplin at Employer Advantage, and I've had several people who just meet me there and pick them up, or I can, you know, distribute them if they live close. We also do ship them, so they're $12 per cookbook, and we can ship them for $5 through the U.S. Postal Service, even multiple books. It only costs about $5 or $6 to ship multiple. So we've shipped them all over.
So those people in California who say, I saw that on Facebook, could get their book that way.
And I did create a Facebook page. It's Dieckhoff Family Cookbook. You can also go there and see some pictures. There's some pictures of some of the recipes I've made. Shows you a little bit. There's even one recipe that you can go out there and get. And so we have Facebook. You could like us there or contact us that way. We even do accept PayPal for payment. So I have a PayPal account that if they're interested in getting one, they can get money to us that way, and we can then ship it to them if that so desired.
So you really have a plan in place.
We do.
Tying this together. And from the city perspective, a smaller community, but these types of resources really help you as far as making things happen.
They do.
And so the park board looking at opportunities, like you say, when the funds start coming in. We're in the wintertime now, but are you seeing perhaps next spring things starting to happen?
Yes. Yeah, we have some of those things planned that I spoke about to happen in the spring.
great.
Yes.
And of course, we're talking specifically about Diamond, but our broadcast obviously goes throughout the region. What would you say to other communities who might be, looking at what are we going to do with our park? How do we maintain things like this? Is this something you would recommend to others?
I would. I think it's been successful so far. We've had good feedback from people, who've bought the cookbook, and I just think it's been a good way to get it out there. And even if they don't do something like this, some type of fundraiser that's going to reach out to other communities, because I have just had feedback from people, like I said, that aren't from here, that are like, oh, I love cookbooks and this is such a good cause, and we're helping a community out that doesn't have a lot. And so I think it's a good way to get the word out about their community and get some help.
And I thought it brought our family together a lot. It was a lot of fun for them, to try to put some of their recipes in. And they realized how important it was to continue the dream that our dad started. So.
And I imagine your parents are proud to look at that book
They
now
are.
and be able to share that with not only family but the community.
Well, and one of the things when I brought it up to my mom, she was very hesitant at first, and she said, well, why would anyone want to buy that? And are you sure they'd want to? And I said, Mom, you've made so many recipes at different things throughout the years, and they all had you as a teacher or knew you and Dad as teachers, and they'd have favorite. I said, I can see that they would love it. And you can really tell the happiness it brings to her when she sells one, or when someone says, oh, I really love that, or I love that.
I tried that recipe and I really like it.
Right. It makes her very happy.
So in today's high-tech Facebook, social media world, still a hardback paper book is used by many people for cooking and time.
Yes, and you have lots of people who, even a man this week came into her business and they were like, oh, I collect cookbooks. And even one of my neighbors said the same thing. She's like, I collect cookbooks. And one lady that is a friend of ours, my husband said, was reading it like a book, just going through and looking through page by page. And she may not make all the recipes, but she just enjoys looking at them and reading them.
Yeah.
So.
Put little tabs on the corners and say, I'm going to do this one, I'm going to do that one. Well, I'd like to thank both of you for visiting with me today and providing some information for our audience.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for having
Appreciate
us.
it.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on the station. We'll see you then.